When painters come to me feeling frustrated, they usually say something like, I know how to draw. I understand value and color. I've taken workshops, but my oil paintings feel like they're falling flat. They don't feel painterly. They don't feel like they have a unique voice. What's interesting is these aren't beginners. They are thoughtful, capable painters who are doing a lot of things right. They're showing up, they're working hard, they care deeply about improving, and yet nothing seems to be clicking. Most of them just assume they need more instruction, more YouTube videos, more practice, more effort, but that's not the real problem. What I see over and over again is that they're practicing constantly, but in a way that their brain can't actually learn from. And once you understand why that is, progress stops feeling mysterious and your artwork transforms, just like it did for my student Deb, whose paintings went from this to this. If you want to get that kind of result instead of just hearing about it, I put the full practice structure into a free guide. It's the first link below. Go ahead and grab it now and then keep watching. Here's the thing most painters don't realize. You can practice a lot and still train your brain to stay exactly where it is. And the reason that happens has nothing to do with talent or discipline. It comes down to how your practice is structured. The first trap is what I call aimless practice. These painters show up to the easel regularly. They're dedicated. But instead of practicing with intention, they're trying to improve everything at once. So the likeness, their color, their brushwork, the composition, all in the same painting at the same time, every time. But when you do that, your attention gets scattered across too many variables. And when your attention is scattered, your brain can't register what's actually going well and what isn't. So even when you are getting better, you can't see it. And often you just muddle it up and undo it with the work that comes next. And when you can't see that progress on top of all of that, motivation collapses. This is why so many painters feel like they're spinning their wheels, working harder, but not smarter. When I was stuck at a corporate day job, painting on nights and weekends, I didn't have time to experiment aimlessly. I also didn't have the money or time to go back to art school, and I didn't have the connections to have a mentor. But what I did have was a psychology degree collecting dust on my wall. And one of the most important things psychology teaches is this. If you want to understand what's causing an outcome, you can't change everything at once. In research, we call this isolating variables, and the principle applies to painting just as much as it applies to science. So instead of trying to, quote, loosen up or find your voice in some vague way, I started breaking the gap between the work I admired and the work I was making into specific learnable skills. So I looked at things like just my ability to draw, or just my ability to control my mark making, or the colors I was mixing. And I practiced those one at a time in controlled environments, what I call sandboxes with my students, where the goal wasn't to make capital A art, but to learn one thing clearly. This is why master studies were something that was so transformative for me, not because I wanted a pretty copy to put on my wall, but because they let me experiment with one variable at a time without the pressure of originality or perfection. That single shift is what allowed me to build a portfolio that I was proud of, and more importantly, that launched my career within just a year, and to leave my day job shortly thereafter. At this point, most painters think that if they've done this, they've solved the problem. And in a way, they have, but almost everyone hits a second wall. So you might be thinking, okay, I'll practice strategically. I will isolate skills. I'll stop trying to fix everything at once. And that does work for a while. But then something else shows up when you sit down to paint. A voice that says, what if this isn't good enough though? Or what if this painting just proves I'm not as good as people think? Maybe I should just keep working on this one more day. And if you don't deal with that voice, none of this sticks. So the second trap that we're talking about here is perfectionism. And I don't mean having high standards, because perfectionism isn't about striving for excellence. Excellence is internally driven. It comes from a desire to grow. Perfectionism is externally driven. It is fueled by the question, what will people think? And when you're painting from that place, experimentation actually becomes dangerous because experimenting means risking failure. And if failure feels like proof that you're not good enough, well, growth shuts down. I see this constantly with painters who are bright, successful, and highly driven in other areas of their life. Failure isn't the opposite of mastery. Failure is where learning, and thus mastery, actually happen. Every failed painting teaches you something about your tools, your process, your planning, and your decision-making. And when you avoid failure, you are avoiding learning. There's a famous study where a ceramics teacher splits his class one semester into two groups. One group was graded on quality. So at the end of the semester, they needed to hand in the most perfect pot they could produce. The other group was graded solely on quantity. So at the end of the semester, how many pots did you produce? The more the pots, the higher the grade. And at the end of the term, the highest quality work came from the quantity group. Not because the quantity group lowered their standards, but because repetition taught them faster than overthinking ever could. And the exact same principle applies to painting. This is exactly why the guide that I mentioned earlier focuses so much on how you practice, not just how often. If you want something concrete to follow instead of trying to hold all of this in your head, it's linked below. But when I shifted from perfection to learning and asking, instead of, is this good, asking, what am I learning? That's really when everything changed. Painting became experimental instead of stressful. Mistakes became something that sparked curiosity instead of judgment. And intuition started to build naturally through repetition. And I'm talking about the kind of intuition that's super important, like knowing what brush to reach for or what pigment to grab that's going to mix the right color. This kind of structure doesn't kill creativity, it actually creates the conditions for it. When you're not juggling 10 problems at once, your brain actually quiets down and you enter flow more easily. You trust yourself more and you're receptive to more information. That's when painting starts to feel intuitive and authentic to yourself instead of panicked. And this is when being able to create work that feels like it's coming from your authentic voice actually starts to happen for you. So if you really want to make this stick, I need to share the last thing that most painters run into. Even when they understand all of this, so strategic practice, isolating variables, learning focused mindsets, they don't stick with it long enough to actually rewire their habits. So they watch a video like this one, they try it for a week or two, and then life gets busy and you kind of forget piece by piece, and you go back into your old patterns. That's why structure matters. You don't want this to come down to brute forcing memory or just willpowering your way to making sure that you don't forget this stuff. If you want real lasting change, not just a temporary breakthrough like the one you tend to get after taking a workshop, you need a system that's sustainable. If you want to put structure around this, instead of trying to just remember it all, the guide is linked below. The guide gives you the structure, but you might be thinking to yourself, Chelsea, that sounds great, but structure isn't exactly my end goal. Finding my voice is. In the next video, I walk you through how I tailored this system to my work and how that took me from being a hobbyist painting on the side to OPA gold medalist. It's on screen now. Watch that next. I can't wait to see what you create.